Ain't no half stepping with Marcus J. Thank you so much for hanging in there with us. These clowns in here is really going in during this commercial break.
We finally got a funny joke in
and whatnot. You know, we got a new mic in here, so I've had some technical difficulties a couple of times. Most of them minor and off the air, but Carl Banks seems to find it necessary to call me out with a hot mic, so that's all right. Because you called me out. You said learn how to work funny joke. No, you said I need to learn how to work the board.
Oh yeah,
that's what you just said.
Yeah,
you don't know what you said. You trying to throw that in. Yeah, he tried to, and then forget what he said 30 seconds after he said it.
You should come off the mic. You ain't say the board.
I will say come off the mic, but he don't talk to me anyway. So it ain't no big deal.
You know what it is. But anyway,
unplug your mic.
The next thing that we want to get into was the very, very sad shootings that went on in Aurora, Colorado Friday during the midnight showing of the Batman movie Dark Knight Rises. Was it Returns? Rises? I'm not sure which one it is. I saw the movie. I enjoyed the movie, but not really wanting to talk about the actual movie.
Don't talk about it.
I want to talk more about, well, you punk should have went to see it, but I want to talk more about this James Holmes fella who is the shooting suspect, and we use the word suspect very, very loosely.
Do we have to say his name?
It was James. Well, we said George Zimmerman, James Holmes. I mean, these, you know, we, in spite of their heinous acts, we will remain professional on Ain't No Half Steppin' Marcus J, and we will say their names, including when Osama bin Laden was alive, and if we'd been on the air, we'd have said his name. But at last count, we had 12 dead and 58 injured. And, you know, if you've been watching the television for the last couple of days, you pretty much know the story. So we don't need to really rehash the fact that, you know, he came into a crowded theater halfway through the movie and started shooting. What I want to talk kind of about is kind of the aftermath or the before math, so to speak, and all the things that he had done in preparation. My first question, and I'm going to start with Carlton on this one. Apparently he did a lot of the purchases of the equipment that he had to set up the booby traps and things like that in his house. He purchased a lot of this stuff online. My question to you is, do you think in 2012 the authorities would not see, or this wouldn't rise a red flag to anybody? Like, why didn't anybody catch this dude before it went down?
Well, that's what they're currently reviewing now, if I read correctly, that they are looking back at the tapes or whatever data they can to find out how they missed it for him to get so much arsenal and paraphernalia to go on this rampage. There should have been some red flags, but again, I'm not FBI or CIA or any of those intelligence agencies that can really understand or answer that question.
ABC.
All right, my next question is going to be to you, Big Rope. Is James Holmes a terrorist?
No, he's just dumb. Okay. I mean, you know, who knows why he did what he did, and he ain't talking. So I appreciate him for putting himself on the stop talking list because he ain't saying nothing.
Why do you think he's not a terrorist, or why would you think he was a terrorist?
If he was a terrorist, he would have done more, I think. And I think the fact what he wanted to do, he did what he wanted to do. He wanted to terrorize the people. So that may label him as a terrorist, quote unquote. But right now we don't know any motives. And then as two, he booby trapped his own apartment. So basically he won't go on back home, and he wanted more people to suffer. So I think at this point in time, I think dude just lost his mind. He went up, bought a whole bunch of stuff, said, look, conspiracy theory 101. I'm going to get them before they get me. And if they try to get me, I'm going to still get them.
Well, here's my thing, and here's why.
Hold on. Let me not to cut you off, Marcus.
Well, you did.
You
did.
I know, but let me expound on the word terrorist. It's not so much a terrorist versus a mass murderer from the standpoint he did not continue the streak, which, again, instills terror. Like the gentleman who was shooting everybody at the rest stops here in the Commonwealth. That's a terrorist. He's constantly doing it. This man only had this one opportunity to because
he got caught. So basically, you're saying that an act of terrorism is multiple acts. So you cannot have one act of terrorism.
I would say multiple.
So Timothy McVeigh wasn't a terrorist either.
Well, Timothy McVeigh, that's another story.
Why is it another story? That was one act.
Okay, but again,
why? Answer the question. Obviously, he's a terrorist. Exactly my point. He is a terrorist. And I will go on record as saying they don't want to use the word terrorist because he doesn't fit the physical description of terrorist. He doesn't have a funny name you can't pronounce. He don't wear a turban. He ain't got brown skin. He don't come from another country. He is a homegrown terrorist. Use the word.
So
he's a
what about
terrorist.
the kids?
He went in, let me finish. He went into a movie theater and terrorized people for the purpose of altering their lives at that moment. It may not have been sustained. It may not have been multiple. That was a single act of terrorism, and he is a terrorist. He doesn't fit the description of terrorism, and they're not going to call him one. But he is one. And every single time you heard about him, they want to keep telling you about how smart he was and how he was a med student and all of these kinds of things. But when it was Trayvon Martin who actually died, they wanted to remind you how he had weed in his pocket. I mean, what's up with that?
Did he? I didn't know he had weed in his pocket.
Well, not at the time of his murder, but he had gotten popped for having weed like a month. He was suspended from school. They made sure you knew that is the point.
I didn't know that.
But this dude, you know, they want to remind you of how smart he was and all of these great things that he had done. And, oh, my God, how could he do this? I wanted to bring that out to make the point because I haven't heard anybody personally call this man a terrorist. And that was the first thing I thought about when I heard this story.
Okay. So let me ask you this: the guy who did all the shooting at Virginia Tech was
Terrorist.
Columbine.
Terrorist. Absolutely.
Yeah, Columbine was terrorism, dog.
When you live in the United States from 2000 to the present, you are systematically forced to believe that terrorism comes in a certain kind of form or it looks a certain kind of way. So anytime you don't have that, your natural inclination is to say, no, that's not terrorism. Of course not. When in actuality it was. When Timothy McVeigh did what he did in 1995, April 16, 1995 in Oklahoma City, one of the first things they called him was a terrorist because that's what he was. So when the Bush administration decided that they wanted to go to war, and part of going to war was to make sure that the American people was okay with it, and part of making sure the American people was okay with it was to systematically brainwash the people watching TV through the media. They made sure that they attached the word terrorist with a certain kind of profile.
Yep.
So anytime you got somebody that does terroristic stuff that don't fit that profile, they're not going to call them what they are. Silence. What y'all got? Silence.
I'm talking.
All right, well, I
I
stopped.
already gave my definition, so I mean, it's no me.
Yeah, but I just gave you examples of why your definition ain't right.
No, I mean,
So let's debate it.
I agree that he caused terror. I mean, if he's a terrorist, he's a terrorist.
So if you
I
agree
could care less. What you call him is what he did. You know, yeah, he's a terrorist. He went and did some stuff for right now, no apparent reason. Yeah, he's a terrorist.
All right, well, let's you know, since we kind of beat that point, Carlton disagrees, Ruben does, and that's fine. The next thing I want to get into is the fact that the president of the United States was supposed to be campaigning in Florida at the time when he was notified. Instead of campaigning, he gave a speech on the shootings and then immediately went back to Washington and later went to join the families in Aurora, which I believe was the right thing to do. He and Willard Mitt Romney decided not to campaign on that day. But my question is this, and for me, there's always a bigger picture. He went to Colorado, he spoke to the families, he spoke to the government there, which was the right thing to do. But my question is, this dude from Chicago, y'all, President Obama is from Chicago, okay? And Chicago killing people like it's the Middle East, for real. Like they at war up in there. It's 280 people since January dead on the streets of Chicago. 280. This weekend alone, you had 45 shot and 8 died. Just this weekend.
Never going to Chicago again.
So the point I'm making is, okay, so you don't go to Chicago or you don't go to New York City where a 4-year-old was killed on the street while watching basketball at a basketball court. 4-year-old was the only one died, but about 5 people got shot. He's not going to the inner cities of New York and Chicago. Okay, but don't you think it's worth him saying something? Especially when it's his hood.
Can he speak on every murder? No, he spoke on something that was a mass killing. Marcus. He can't speak on everyone.
You don't think that 280 people in your hometown is worth mentioning?
Okay, but that's it. He cannot speak to each one.
Why not?
Why?
Why
is he going to do it every day?
Why can't?
I mean, at this point, we haven't had. Okay. That's more than one murder a day.
Okay, well let me ask you. Obviously.
Okay.
So let me ask you this.
You want him to spend 1 hour out of every day to recognize that one death?
Obviously not. Obviously not. But let me ask you this. You had people who felt like the president coming out and saying that he supported gay marriage, which I support as well. He had people who came out. And had issues with him. You had churches who told their pulpits not to vote for this man because he supported gay marriage. Just him having that proclamation had that kind of power. So you don't think that the man coming from this town, not necessarily speaking on every single one, because I'm not suggesting that, but if I know the numbers, you know that he knows the numbers. So here we are, July 23rd, 2012, more than halfway through the year, 2-3 months away from the next election. You don't think that it would be worthy of the president to speak on the mass killings in his hometown?
No, it's not political, for one, and two, it's an individual basis.
Well, just because it's not political doesn't mean it's not the right thing to do. I think it was the right thing to do for him to go to Aurora. Absolutely, it was the right thing to do. But I also think maybe not go to Chicago, which I think it would be okay to go to Chicago and do a press conference about how y'all need to stop killing. But if he wants to do it from the White House, or if he wants to do it from the campaign trail, I'm not saying you need to say something every single time somebody dies, but we up to 280 right now. For real, yo? 280? And he ain't said nothing?
But then I go back to you to ask, how can he address each one?
This isn't
a scenario where there was a mass killing.
He doesn't have to address each one, Carlton. All he has to say is, y'all need to stop this killing.
Okay.
Y'all, big picture, all y'all. He ain't got to address every single one. All he has to do is say, what the hell is going on in my town?
Let me ask you this. Are any of those considered terrorist killing?
Well, of course. I mean, not off the. I mean, I have to go and do research on all 280. But are you telling me that some suburbanites in the movie theater in Aurora, Colorado, are more important than 280 kids in the street in the hood?
Okay, that's not what you're saying. You're still speaking to individuals versus a mass killing.
Well, what difference does it make is my point. I understand what you're saying. I don't think you understand what I'm saying. I understand that you're saying is individual killings. Yes. But those individual killings have come to the cumulative of 280. So here we stand on July 23rd at 280 when you had 45 just this weekend shot. And just because it wasn't all because of one gunman, does that mean that those people who lost their lives are not as important as the ones who did in Colorado? I mean, don't get me wrong. I think he did the right thing by going to Colorado. You're the president of the United States. You had a traumatic incident happen in your country. You need to go there. They need to see that the president understands the seriousness of this mass shooting, and the country needs to see you to help with the healing. Just like when President Bush was the president during the Virginia Tech, we needed to see him. And just like when President Clinton with Columbine and so on. But just because it's not one individual taking out 280 people doesn't mean that cumulatively that it doesn't warrant at least a mention. Just all I'm asking.
So at what number should he recognize?
Well, it doesn't matter. I mean, the 280 is the number now. Okay,
so it's
280 is the number now. But listen, Carlton, you talking about 45 in just a weekend, and that's a low number for them because a lot of times, if you go back over the weeks of this year, sometimes it's been even more than that. So the actual number, I mean, that's semantics. It don't matter what the actual number is. The point is, there's a culture of violence that's going on in his hometown, and he walking around like it ain't happening.
Ignore the fact that it's his hometown.
No, I can't. Well, that's part of the for me, in my opinion, that's part of it. That's part of it. Because how you gonna be from this town where they put you on the map? You was the state senator. You came from there. You was a community organizer in that town. Okay? And that's a town right now whose murder statistics are off the charts. Off the charts.
Okay.
And you ain't said nothing?
Okay. Again, I'm asking you, how many of them are mass murders? Now, you keep saying that it's 200 and some plus. Fine. Again, more than one a day. Fine. Where is he going to step in and play and say, my city, my state, whatever, needs to do something about the murders. So then you're going to ask him to say that about each and every city and state that has a lot of murders. You're wanting him to single out one area.
Yeah.
Chicago.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I ain't see him doing that.
Well, I don't see him doing it either because he hasn't. I don't see him doing it either because he hasn't done it.
In fact, again, it is not a situation that presidents have to deal with or should have to deal with. It should go back to the fact of whatever province governs that area.
Wow.
That's what it should govern.
This is the first time that Big Rube was actually going to be the voice of reason.
Right now, Big Rube can be on the sidelines for right now because of the simple fact, why is it that the president has to do this? Why? I mean, really, a lot of murders here in the capital city. Why does the president have to recognize each and every murder? He recognizes the soldiers that lost their lives. Okay, those are people who fight for us daily. Now, again, you got some idiots outside of their own right minds killing left and right.
Right.
Okay, so why is the president going to sit there and say, I can do something? Why isn't this Commonwealth or whatever province that governs that area doing something about it?
Well, they should be.
Don't put the onus on the president. He's got enough.
No, I disagree with that. No, obviously he has enough to deal with, obviously.
Okay, so he again, 280. So what?
So what, 280? Really? How about you say that to those families? 280.
I'll say it to those families.
You'll say, so what, 280 people died to their faces?
Yes.
That's cold, man.
Oh, well. I'm a cold person right now.
No, you ain't no cold person, and that ain't you. I'm not gonna get into why you get fired.
Cold-blooded.
Because it is what it is. But on this one, we gonna definitely disagree.
We're gonna have
we gonna definitely disagree because for me, it has little to do with the president being Barack Obama and more about the president forgetting where he came from. Okay, if it was Bill Clinton and this was going on in Little Rock, Arkansas, I would have the same opinion. Okay. You came from there, but you have nothing to say? Nothing? I mean, there are a lot of things that come up that are in the media or not in the media that the president has an opinion on. What? Because it's not sensational? You ain't got nothing to say? He has something to say about Trayvon Martin? And Big Rube and I talked about that at length. He had an opinion about that. Why? Because it was mainstream. It was a white dude shooting or Latino dude, depending on what you believe, shooting a black kid. Okay? And that made mainstream media. But nobody wants to talk about the violence in the hood with the black kids killing the black kids with the black president that came from that neighborhood that's standing by silent. And yeah, I think he has a little bit more obligation because he is the black president from the black town where the black kids are killing their black asses. So yeah, he got a little bit more to say, or in my opinion, than anybody else would. Big Rube.
I like to just toss this out there. Not get on anybody's side, but how do we know the president has not contacted the state of Illinois and asked, hey, look, can I make a statement? Because as we know, some states don't really like the president just making statements about their state or their city or whatever. How do we know he has not addressed this with the people there? How do we not know that they have pretty much said, nah, prayers, we got this, let us handle it their own way? That's all I will throw into it because we don't know what goes on behind the scenes. I understand, Marcus, that you feel like he should say something about the city he came from. I understand Banks feels like, president got a whole bunch of stuff to do, and it is what it is. I get it. I understand both sides, but I'm just gonna be like this. I'm thinking he knows 280 killings. That's a lot of killings. 2, he probably has contacted some people in Illinois. And they probably told him, hey, look, man, we got this. Please don't say anything about it. We don't want to bring any more undue attention to our city or our state. So I'm going to say it like that. And I think, we're going to go ahead to a break right now. I think Marcus J got something queued up. So we're going to go ahead to some Queen Latifah, UNITY. Ain't no half Steppin. Marcus J will come back with some rants. And you thought that was something? We still got rants to do. Be back in 2 and 2.